In the year 1260, the unstoppable Mongol Empire had conquered half the world. Cities trembled before their might, entire civilizations fell before their advance, and kings and queens paid tribute just to survive. But all that came to an end in a single day when the Mongols faced an army from Egypt in a valley called Ain Jalut. This was no ordinary army, though. They were elite soldiers known as Mamluks, trained their whole lives to do only one thing: to fight and kill anyone who threatened Egypt.
Ho, ho, ho!
And they would need all their training that day because the Mongols were led by a man named Hulagu, someone who took great pleasure in crushing entire armies and ruling over what was left. When he heard about the Egyptian Sultan's defiance, his response was simple. He would march on Egypt himself and show them the power of the Mongols. So, in 1260, Hulagu set out to conquer Egypt.
Ho, ho, ho!
But as he led his army across the deserts of the Middle East, he had no idea that he was being watched the whole time by a spy. It was one of his own men, actually a Persian general named Arnold the Armenian, who was secretly loyal to the Egyptians. For weeks, he sent secret letters back to Egypt telling them everything about Hulagu's plans, basically giving the Egyptians the ability to prepare for the coming attack.
Ho, ho, ho!
It was actually a pretty smart move by the Egyptians because these Mongols weren't like any other army. Their strength wasn't in swords and shields, but in mobility. When they entered battle, they would ride in on horseback, firing arrows at their enemies before even getting close enough to fight. And then when they got into close combat, they would use a deadly combination of horse riding skills and powerful weapons to destroy entire armies.
Ho, ho, ho!
Their leader, Hulagu, was a brilliant tactician who had already conquered most of the Middle East by using hit-and-run tactics, and then finishing off the rest with his elite group of soldiers. Led the Death Riders. The Death Riders were a group of specially trained warriors who were loyal only to Hulagu. They wore black armor and rode on swift horses.
Ho, ho, ho!
They also carried powerful weapons like composite bows and arrows that could pierce through almost anything, as well as curved swords that were perfect for cutting through enemy armor. When the Death Riders charged into battle, they were unstoppable. They would ride in tight groups, forming a living wall of steel and muscle that could crush anyone who stood in their way. And if that wasn't enough, the Mongol army also had a special weapon, gunpowder.
Ho, ho, ho!
They used it in a type of cannon called a trebuchet, which could hurl explosive projectiles that could blow apart entire formations of soldiers. With such a powerful army, it's no wonder that everyone they faced either surrendered or was destroyed. But that's where the Mamluk army came in. They were the elite soldiers of Egypt, trained from childhood to be the best warriors in the world. There were three types of Mamluks: infantry, cavalry, and artillery. The infantry were the backbone of the army.
Ho, ho, ho!
They were well-trained and disciplined, and fought bravely in close quarters. The cavalry were fast and maneuverable, and were used to strike quickly and decisively. And the artillery was made up of elite archers, who could shoot accurately from long range. But what really made the Mamluk army special was their leader, Sultan Qutuz, a brilliant strategist and commander who had experience leading armies against the Mongols in Syria.
Ho, ho, ho!
When Qutuz heard about Hulagu's plan to invade Egypt, he immediately started to prepare. He knew that he couldn't beat the Mongols head-on, so he decided to use the terrain to his advantage. He chose a place called the Valley of the Giants for the final battle, a narrow strip of land surrounded by hills on all sides. He knew that this would prevent the Mongols from using their cavalry and artillery to their full potential, and it would force them to fight on foot.
Ho, ho, ho!
He also knew that the Mongols were used to fighting on open plains where they could chase down fleeing enemies without any obstacles, but in the Valley of the Giants, there were hills everywhere. That meant that the Mongols wouldn't be able to flee after losing the battle, because wherever they went, they would run straight into another Egyptian army.
Ho, ho, ho!
The Mamluk army consisted of 40,000 infantrymen, 20,000 cavalrymen, and 2,000 artillerymen, making it one of the largest armies ever assembled in the Middle East at that time. On the other side was Hulagu Khan's army, which was much smaller, around 30,000 soldiers. Despite being outnumbered, Hulagu Khan was confident that his army would win. He had faced larger armies before and always come out on top. But he didn't know what was in store for him in the Valley of the Giants.
Ho, ho, ho!
The battle began with a fierce clash between the two armies. The Mongols, with their superior numbers and skills, pushed the Egyptians back. It seemed like the Mongols were going to win easily. But suddenly, Qutuz gave an order. The Egyptian infantrymen spread out into the open field, drawing the Mongols away from their defensive positions. As the Mongols advanced, they walked right into an ambush. Hidden beneath the sand in the hills were the Egyptian cavalrymen, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
Ho, ho, ho!
Suddenly, they charged out of their hiding places, catching the Mongols off guard. The cavalrymen fought bravely, and soon the entire Mongol army was surrounded. But just as it seemed like the Mongols would be defeated, something unexpected happened. Hulagu Khan disappeared. His men searched everywhere for him, but they couldn't find him anywhere. Turns out he had been captured by the Mamluks. With their leader gone, the Mongol army was in chaos.
Ho, ho, ho!
They tried to regroup, but the Mamluks were relentless, and soon the entire Mongol army was defeated. It was one of the most decisive battles in history. The Mongols lost more than 11,000 soldiers, including many of their elite death riders. The Egyptians, on the other hand, only lost a few hundred men. After the battle, Qutuz led his army in pursuit of the retreating Mongols, inflicting heavy casualties along the way.
Ho, ho, ho!
He chased them all the way to the outskirts of Damascus, where he forced them to surrender and take an oath never to return to Egypt. After that, he returned to Cairo a hero, and the Mamluks celebrated their victory 4 days. People danced in the streets, fireworks lit up the night sky, and everyone praised the bravery of the soldiers. But Qutuz knew that the victory was not just theirs. It belonged to all Muslims everywhere.
Ho, ho, ho!
You see, the Mongols had been on a rampage for years, destroying everything in their path. They had sacked Baghdad, one of the greatest cities of the Islamic world, and killed hundreds of thousands of Muslims. The Mamluk victory at Ain Jalut was seen as a victory for all Muslims, and it inspired people around the world to resist the Mongol invaders. In fact, it was the start of the end for the Mongol Empire. After their defeat at Ain Jalut, they were never able to recover.
Ho, ho, ho!
Soon after, the empire split into several smaller kingdoms, and the dream of world domination died with Genghis Khan's grandson, Hulagu Khan. As for the Mamluk Sultan Qutuz, he continued to rule Egypt for many years after his victory at Ain Jalut. He is remembered as one of the greatest heroes of the Islamic world, and the Mamluk victory at Ain Jalut is taught in schools and celebrated every year on October. As for me, I just hope that you enjoyed watching this video.
Ho, ho, ho!
Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Ho, ho, ho!